Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com to talk about the worst stipulation matches in wrestling history, the worst gimmick matches. I asked people on Facebook and Twitter for their input, so let's look at some of these matches here that I've come up with for this list. The pole match. What was Vince Russo thinking? What was he smoking when he came up with this match? I don't care what is on top of the pole, whether it's a pink slip, whether it's Viagra, or whether it's freaking Judy Bagwell. These matches were just completely ridiculous, and I don't understand what Vince Russo had in mind when he said, hey, let's do a pole match. Punjabi Prison. This was WWE's attempt to try something different, you know, not exactly a cage match, but similar. Some kind of stipulation match for Great Khali, where you have this bamboo-style fence on all sides like a cage, and you have to try to escape it, and there's 2 layers. The problem is that the matches just weren't very good, and it was overcomplicated. I think you had like 4 different doors, and you know, the wrestler had to signal to the referee to release one of the doors. So it was a little too much, I thought. And the biggest problem is that you had the Great Khali in these matches, although I think one time he was unable to make the pay-per-view and they had to do a Punjabi Prison match without him. So whatever. Yeah, I mean, these matches were not good. I mean, the one memorable thing I remember was when Batista jumped from one part of the cage to the other part. That was cool, but besides that, these matches were no good. Scaffold matches. You know, it looks cool if you're somebody who wants to see wrestlers get hurt, but they're just way too dangerous, and I always feared that somebody was going to get seriously hurt in one of these matches, and you know, it made it unentertaining for me. It would be hard to watch because I'm knowing that there's no safe way to fall off the top of a scaffold. And in fact, I remember Jim Cornette falling off one in the 80s, and you know, he got hurt. So bad idea, and I'm glad that WWE never got serious about doing these matches because it just puts the wrestlers at too much risk. Tuxedo matches. Who wants to see 2 men tearing each other's clothes off? Well, I mean, if you're straight, you're not going to want to see it, but it's not something a lot of people want to see. You know, if you're going to do it, at least have the divas in the bikini matches or whatever, but I don't want to see a bunch of pale, hairy men taking off each other's clothes. You know, there's nothing wrong with it if that's your thing, but you know, there's really no place for it in wrestling, especially when you have like Harvey Whippleman and you know, who else was in it? Who was he feuding with? Howard Finkel. I mean, come on now. I mean, those matches were just ridiculous, and yeah, the less said about it, the better. Although it could be worse. You could have an evening gown match with Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. TNA Reverse Battle Royal. I don't even know how to explain this. I mean, Vince Russo with another one of his wacky ideas. I'm not even going to try to describe this match. It was definitely one of the worst stipulation matches of all time, and you know, just the name of it just sounds completely absurd. King of the Mountain, another TNA match that I felt was way too complicated. Too many things. You're trying to have too many concepts in one match. You have a ladder, you have guys pinning other people, and then the person who gets pinned goes into the penalty box for 2 minutes, and then when you pin the guy, you're eligible to climb the ladder. Too much! Just keep it simple. My thoughts on that. Retirement matches. Retirement matches could have been a great stipulation in wrestling history, except for the fact that nobody retires when they lose. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the only retirement match I actually remember sticking, the stipulation staying in place, was Shawn Michaels when he lost to WrestleMania 26 and he retired, and he never came back after that. But in all other cases, you know, Terry Funk, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, these guys would lose retirement matches and then they would keep coming back. So, yeah, terrible stipulation because of the fact that it was never enforced. Feast or Fired. Similar to the retirement match, but different, where somebody wins, they get a title shot, and then the guy that loses is fired. So, I mean, that's ridiculous, and the guys that get fired always end up coming back anyways. So, just a really dumb stipulation. And why would you want to fire one of your top stars, you know, for the sake of a stipulation match? So it would just make the company look stupid. Lumberjack match. Never a big fan of these matches because they always went exactly the same, where you would have 20 guys out there, 10 baby faces, 10 heels. Every time a guy gets thrown out of the ring, let's say babyface gets thrown out, all the heels would gang up on him, throw him back in, and vice versa. Whenever a heel gets thrown out, the babyfaces would throw him back in, and then the babyfaces and heel lumberjacks would get in the brawl. It would be the same thing every single time. So, never was a big fan of these matches. Hog Pen match. To be honest, I actually liked this stipulation. It makes for good undercard entertainment. I remember one with Santino and Chavo Guerrero, and it's kind of funny seeing Chavo in his street clothes getting thrown around in the mud, and then Vicky Guerrero getting mud thrown in her face. So I mean, it's okay to me. And the Triple H Henry Godwin match from '95. I actually liked that match. I liked the snobby Triple H getting thrown into mud and taking all these crazy bumps, and that was actually the first time that I was impressed with Triple H and thought he had potential to be a major star, and that was way back in '95. So I mean, there you go. So I didn't really hate the Hog Pen matches. I didn't have a problem with them. And the Blindfold match, a lot of people name this as a bad stipulation match. But I always found them to be entertaining, to be honest. I mean, I liked the Jake Roberts and Rick Martel match. I think, I can understand why people didn't like it because it does limit the wrestlers. They're not really wrestling. They're just moving around with their hands and they're not really doing anything. But, it's been done very rarely. I mean, it doesn't happen all that often, a blindfold match. And when it does happen, I kind of think it's something different and unique. So, I never had a problem with these matches. One match I did have a problem with was the Sumo match, and the most notable one, there were a couple, I think, with Earthquake John Tenta in the 90s. I think he had one with Yokozuna. But the one that really stands out to me, and not in a good way, is the one in 2005 at WrestleMania 21. I was there at Staples Center at that WrestleMania, and that's when the pay-per-view really fell off a cliff for me. I mean, I was enjoying WrestleMania. I thought it was a great pay-per-view, but then they had Big Show and Akibono go out there, and once again, I don't want to be seeing men almost completely naked. I don't want to be seeing Big Show's fat ass unless it's for a comedy skit where Vince's head gets shoved into it. But in this case, it was terrible. It was really bad, and it was pointless. It just made Big Show look like a goof, and Akibono was never seen again in WWE, so all it did was make Big Show look bad. Strap matches. Strap matches it's an interesting stipulation because there have been a couple of good strap matches over the years. Like a blindfold match, it limits the performers, and it's more about just whipping the guy, and that's how the whole match goes, and then you try to touch the four corners. There have been a couple good ones. I mean, Stone Cold and Savio Vega had a really good strap match when Ted DiBiase left the company. But most of them have been bad. I mean, there have been more bad strap matches than good ones, and that's the problem. And similar to a strap match is a bull rope match. I mean, pretty much the same thing. You're tied up with the rope, and you're very limited. The wrestlers can't do a whole lot, and everything in the match is built around the rope. So they can get kind of boring and repetitive. And a couple more here. The King of the Road match. There was only one of these to my knowledge at the first uncensored. And I'm glad there was only one because it was pretty damn bad. It was a complete disaster. It was Dustin Rhodes versus bunkhouse buck, and they had this this helicopter with the camera trying to film it, and I mean you couldn't really see anything, and it was just a disaster. And I guess they had a blade job in that match, and it was unauthorized, and Dustin Rhodes got fired as a result, and ended up going to WWE and becoming Goldust. So I guess we did get one good thing out of it. And two more here. The Doomsday cage match from WCW. This could have been something special, but if you actually had a good match here with good competitors. But when you have Hulk Hogan in there, first of all, it's Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage against 8 people. You have the Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom teaming up, and then you bring in Z Gangster, aka Zeus from the late '80s, and the Ultimate Solution, the Final Solution. I don't even remember what they called them. But this was one of the worst matches of all time. It was so bad. And, just trying to describe it here doesn't do it justice as to how awful it was. And finally, the Kennel from Hell, a variation of the Hell in a Cell with dogs. And the less said about this, the better. I'm sure most of you have seen the Kennel from Hell match, and the dogs out there pooping at ringside. And Big Boss Man and Al Snow in there, and one of the worst matches of all time. All right, that'll do it for my thoughts on the worst stipulation matches in wrestling history. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment at youtube.com/NoDQCAW, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest in WWE and TNA. Thanks for watching.